Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, and you know what that means. It's Necro Thursday. So how's it going, Jeff? Doing okay?
Yeah, doing okay. Yeah, we were talking a little bit off air. Might as well say it now. I broke my toe.
That's a bummer.
It is, man. It sucks. I'm fine. It's just it's a pinky toe, and there's not really much they can do for you when you break your pinky toe. It's not like you can be in a cast or anything. I'm dealing with that. Laying around a lot, resting it, but it kind of sucks. Kind of bored.
Do they give you any good drugs for the pain or anything like that?
No, of course not. No, you have to be dying, I think, to get that stuff now. Whereas, 10, 15 years ago, they just handed it out to you if you, had a stomach ache.
That's probably a good thing that they didn't prescribe heavy-duty painkillers.
Yeah. They doctors created the opiate epidemic, and now they're kind of course correcting. Whereas, I'd imagine if I went in there missing a finger, they'd be like, take some Tylenol, you'll be fine. But how are you doing, man? You have any broken limbs since I last talked to you?
Nah, everything's good, man. It's it's the end of we're approaching the end of January, like the end of the year. I always get really depressed around the Well, in the last couple of years, I've been getting really depressed around the holidays, and everything slows down, and there's nothing going on really, and I don't really, I'm pretty much by myself most of the time. And when we get into January, my mood picks up because I'm doing stuff again. I'm busy and things are happening. So right now I'm kind of back into, full swing of everything, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. I also find the holidays very depressing and kind of have for a long time. Not really sure why, but they've always sort of bummed me out for some reason.
Yeah, you just got to make the best of it, man. And making attempts to have good holidays. But New Year's Eve is always a bummer, man. I don't even think I was awake at midnight on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Like I said, I did the same thing every New Year's Eve. I watch the Twilight Zone marathon. That's on Sci-Fi Channel. And it's good enough for me. I'm not I don't drink anymore for over a year now. And I always kind of consider New Year's Eve amateur hour. You know what I mean?
Oh, no doubt, man. Definitely.
Yeah, I never understood people who stood in the freezing cold in Times Square to watch a fucking ball drop. Watch some douchebag from CNN prattles on into a microphone.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Yeah. So yeah.
But let's give a rundown to our brothers in arms. Of course, we're talking about the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. So coming at you on Monday, we got Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666. On Tuesday, back in action is Jackie Smith's Into the Necrosphere. Back from vacation after a bit of time off, so it's good to hear him again. Wednesday is Everything Went Black, which is a variety of different things that I talk about. I have all kinds of variety, many, many different types of guests on there. And Thursday, of course, is Necro Thursday. Friday is Break the Apocalypse. Mike Scandato's brother, John, is one of the hosts of that. And on Sunday, the Lord's Day, Carl Hikara comes at you with Soul Knox. And, we give you Saturday off. That's a good day to go out there and, breathe fresh air, put your toes in the grass, get some vitamin D through the sun, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Mike, what have you been doing, man? Have you been watching anything good?
Yeah, a bunch of stuff. I think I mentioned to you that I was going to check out a film called Candyland. And
yes, you did mention that.
Yeah, it's a movie that I feel like it's a little bit under the radar, but it was actually really good. It's got William Baldwin is in it. The one.
I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah, he's not the Baldwin brother who manslaughtered somebody. He's As far as I know, he hasn't taken any lives at this point, as far as I know. So he's in
That's
it.
a plus.
Yeah. Owen Campbell. Now, you might recognize him if you've seen X. He plays the filmmaker in that. Okay.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
right. Okay.
He was also in My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To, which we covered a while back.
Yes, you liked it. Both of you guys liked it a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And he plays the vampire, quote unquote, in that movie. And he's in this one. And I got to say, I'm a fan of his work, man. He's a solid actor. He's got a lot of presence on film. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this
Nice.
movie, it's about prostitutes at a truck stop, and he plays a male prostitute, a hustler, if you will.
Hmm.
Baldwin plays a cop who is in love with him.
Okay.
And there's a serial murderer that infiltrates their group, and yeah, it's actually quite a good movie. I really enjoyed it. It's heavy on characterization, which I dig. There's some good set
Yes.
pieces. There's a connection to like fundamentalist like Christianity, that kind of thing. And yeah, it just I think it takes place in the 90s because I think that kind of thing isn't as big these days as it was back then. If you probably remember, like running up on these truck stops and like out in like Utah or Nevada, or yeah, maybe not so much Nevada because it's legal outside of Las Vegas, but Colorado, places like that where there's these wide open spaces and these little oases of service that you'd find in the middle of the desert, and then there'd be what they used to call lot lizards like lurking.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess now it's not that big of a thing. I haven't seen too much of that over the last 15 years or so because I'm assuming because of like the internet and being able to connect that way,
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. All that stuff that I would imagine is just much easier now, and it's like the sketchy element of it has been removed a little bit. It's as far as the truck stops go.
Yeah, so that's interesting. It's like this like sketchy little story. It's very well done. The film, filming of it was amazing because it's got that beautiful landscape from the Midwest, the mountains, like that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I saw Skinamarink, which Mike and I talked a little bit about last week, and that was an experience, shall we say?
Okay. All right. So I've heard very mixed things actually
I'm not surprised
about it.
Yeah, I'm totally not surprised because it's not a movie for everyone.
Mm.
And I think that if I made an analogy last week about if you go to see the band Sun play and you are
Yes.
expecting to see Slayer, then you're going to be disappointed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what Skinamarink is like.
All right. Interesting. All right. Yeah, I know it's going to be on Shudder in 2 weeks or so. So I am very curious because I try not to read too much about something that I want to see. Don't want my opinion being swayed by reviews or tomato meters or any of that. But I do talk horror quite a bit with people, and got a message from someone saying, "Don't believe the hype."
Like there's like okay, all right.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I get what he's saying. Like people are talking about it like it's the the newest greatest horror movie, and sometimes when you go into a movie like that with those kind of expectations, they can easily be underwhelmed.
Yeah, but you know what though? Honestly, I don't think it's like the greatest, newest thing, but it's interesting. You know what I'm trying to say? It's definitely worth checking out and experiencing. I would not probably list it as like a top 10 film or anything like that, but it's an interesting concept, and it's really really pretentious. like number one.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like
All right.
seriously, it's like real pretentious, like artsy fartsy stuff. But I tend to like a lot of things like that, and I enjoyed. I have to put air quotes on enjoyed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And
I
but
get
I
it.
found myself thinking about it. Like there were moments of that movie where days later I was like, "Wow, what the, that makes me." I think about that. There are parts of the film that really made me kind of like, you know, kind of like a cold chill like ran through me in certain parts of the movie. And but those are like punctuations of long expanses where really you're kind of just observing and waiting for something to happen, and it just lulls you into this sense, the sinister sense of dread, almost
Mm,
almost like kind of like this bored feeling. Yeah, sure, I got bored. It didn't need to be 1 hour and 40 minutes, honestly.
sure.
But then there something would happen, and you'd be like, oh, whoa, this is pretty intense.
And it's telling that you said something that days later you're still thinking about. There's moments that you're still thinking about. It's really interesting how like you can see something and not be 100. Maybe you feel one way about it, but the more you think about it, your opinion maybe shifts a little bit. The movie we're about to talk about, I had a similar experience
Yeah, yeah,
where I
totally.
really felt one way about it, and now I think I feel differently about it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and the thing with like Skinamarink, it's like if these guys make another film and this is like the only thing they do, then I'd be like, it's garbage. You know what I mean?
uh, I checked out um, The Last of Us, that new show on HBO Max.
Yes, I saw that too. What do you think?
Oh, uh, pleasantly surprised. Um, I can't think of any video game adaptation that I've ever seen that wasn't complete dog shit.
I
Nothing comes
oh
to mind.
yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed it. At first, I dismissed it because there's been promo for that for like the last like what maybe 6 months. They've been building up to this,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was like, oh man, really a video game? But then like I started seeing some of the visuals, and I'm like, man, this is like really cool. And then of course, I looked forward to seeing it, and I was like, man, this is actually really good. Hopefully they can keep it up.
Yeah, and I'm not a gamer by any stretch of the imagination, but I do occasionally play a video game, and I did play that game whenever it came out, maybe 10 years ago at this point. And I was kind of surprised. I don't really get emotionally invested in video games, and I was kind of surprised at the emotional weight that the game had. The opening scene from the show, the opening 15 20 minutes, is almost identical to the game, and it works. And it was surprisingly like I was like, oh, this is going to be something different. This is not some shitty cash grab based on name recognition. This looks like it's going to be really good.
Yeah, I love video games, but I do not play them because I know that I would just like disappear into like a virtual world. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
intentional. It's intentional that I don't play any games because I just love I back in the day I loved video games. You know what I mean? I played tons of video games, but now I got too much to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Like I've flirted with getting one of those Madden games, football for PlayStation, but I know that would be my downfall if I got that. That would just be all. It would just consume me. I know that. So I put it off for that specific reason.
Yeah, I have a Steam account, and like I played some of the Lovecraft games like Call of Cthulhu and things like that, and I'm like, man, I'm like really getting sucked into this, and I'm like, I need to like have some discipline here, otherwise I'm never gonna get anything done, you know?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it on this podcast before. My girlfriend was playing the game, and I got sucked into watching her play. It was that game Quarry.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it was just really it took me by surprise how good it was, how cinematic it was, and very nailed like the tone of like an '80s type of horror movie. And so, yeah, it's really easy to get sucked into that. That said, I think the show is great. I've been seeing a lot of complaints about it
Of course.
online, but I'm not really yeah, of course. Like people talking about how it's disrespectful to the source material and
Oh
things like
God.
that. And yeah, man, like I say this all the time. An adaptation is just that. It is someone else's interpretation of something that already exists. It's not your interpretation, it's theirs. And, if you want the exact same story you got in playing the game, you just play the fucking game again. Like,
I would. I prefer when they expand on it and change it. You know what I mean? That's why I like Let the Right One In so much. The series. It's like not. It's not the book. It's a totally different story, but it's taking elements from it and making its own thing.
yeah, same with Interview with the Vampire. It takes the characters, and the overall kind of plot, but changes so much. But still, tonally, I think I never read it, but it stays true to the source material.
Yeah, my I need to check that out because my friend Jade actually recommended that to me too. She's like a big vampire fan, and she was telling me about it, and I was like, "You're like one of the 5 people that told me about this," and that's the only Anne Rice book I read. The novels, I'm not a. I really wish I liked Anne Rice, but I'm not really a fan,
Mm.
honestly. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. I'm right there with you. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't comment whether she's a good writer or not, but doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Speaking
Um,
of writing, I just want to interject this one thing here. I read the new Adam Neville short story, "Rise Up Together," in the Close to Midnight collection, and very good. But I have to say, the last 3 things that I read by Neville, this short story, "The Vessel," and "Cunning Folk," it's like this dude's like afraid of old people, man. It's like all all 3 of those pieces have to do with evil, like elderly, man. It's really funny.
oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I love it when you start to pick apart, or notice, I should say, themes in a writer's work. Like that, like when I first started reading Thomas Agati, there seemed to be like the first 3 stories I read by him were about like rogue artists and things like that. I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting. Like, I wonder how he really feels about the art community. It seems like he's had some negative experiences in that regard.
Sure, yeah, like
Ah,
and I actually Neville's recent story. I mean, I don't know how long ago he wrote this, but "Rise Up Together" has a bit of a Legati kind of vibe to it. You know what I mean? It's like some weird,
really?
yeah, it's like a weird town by the seaside where things are just like off. You know what I mean? And then there's like this kind of inevitable horror that is kind of lurking in the periphery of this whole thing. Similar to like there's like that's a thing with like a lot of Legati's stories. There's like this inevitability that there's this vibe of inevitability in his stories. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Sorry. What else did you check out, Jeff? I didn't
Well,
mean
no,
to
it's
cut you
funny.
off.
I mentioned that because I've been falling asleep to YouTube, and
Me too,
I
actually.
usually been, yeah. I put on a Legati story last night, sort of a book on tape on YouTube, and it was "Dreams of a Mannequin,"
Oh yeah.
one of his better stories.
Yep.
It's so vivid, you can really picture it in your head, and it's kind of perfect to fall asleep to if you just want to have a really bad, bizarre night of dreams. Which I find kind of fun and interesting when I wake up and I'm like, oh God, oh, glad that's over. Glad that wasn't real. I did also want to mention, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts like our own because, again, I don't like to have my I don't want it to be too much like something else or make someone else's point, but I do love lists. I love top 10 lists of the year. I always have. So I listened to a podcast. Not sure I want to say their name, and their number one movie for one guy, Dash Cam.
Oh my God, man! Really?
Yeah.
What a bummer,
Um,
man.
yeah, and it made the one of the other hosts top five, and that I just found that baffling. Like there are people out there who enjoyed the movie, and I don't see how. I mean, it's literally the worst movie I've ever seen.
Well, you know how I feel about it. You know.
Yes, yes.
But
Um,
Annie, if you're listening though, man, holla at me though. That's all I gotta say. You know.
yeah. I don't know even know why I wanted to bring that up. It's just, I was like, I wanted to get your take on like Dashcam is someone's favorite movie of 2022. That is a thing that exists.
Actually, random. Like we were talking about Legati. I just want to talk about Cadabra Records. Are you familiar with that label?
Say again, what's the name?
Cadabra Records.
I don't think I am.
Man, it's they sell records. Obviously, they have books, and it's all
Yeah.
like weird fiction stuff. And I just received Call of Cthulhu vinyl reading with like a score
Mm.
behind it. And then I was looking, I'm like, oh, this is great. You know, I listened to it. The packaging's great. It's on like, heavy vinyl, and it just, the whole thing is awesome. So I ordered Thomas Legati, The Small People. Okay. That's
Mm.
being read. And then I was looking through the books, right? And I discovered that a friend of ours actually illustrated one of the books.
Really?
Yeah. H.P. Lovecraft, At the Mountains of Madness, illustrated by Joe Kineberger.
Joe Kinder.
You remember Joe? Joe FSU. You know, he played bass in World Is My Fuse.
Oh,
Yeah.
no shit.
Yep.
Wow. I do. If you never mentioned him, I'd probably go the rest of my life forgetting he existed.
Well, Joe had done some artwork for Tombs too a few years ago, and I'd see him here and there, in Boston when I was up there. And I knew that he does like incredible artwork, man. And he's like way into like weird fiction and folk horror and like all that stuff. And so I was going through their catalog because I had actually ordered, there's that Legati like poetry book that they're releasing too. Right.
Right.
So I was scrolling through and I saw, oh, this is really cool. H.P. Lovecraft illustrated by Joe Kineberger. So I ordered that too. So I got those two things coming.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, I remember him being a cool guy. I don't think we ever talked horror or anything like that. I was unaware he was into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just because I was living with all those guys, like I talked to him a lot, and I said he Joe FSU, but he was never in FSU. I don't know why
Right, yeah, but
I don't know why he wasn't a gangster. You know what I mean? I just want to correct that. You know what I mean? In case anyone knows Joe out there, you know what I mean?
Right. But he was, peripheral. He was friends with a lot of those guys, as you and I both were too at one point.
Right.
Wow, yeah, interesting. I got to check that out then.
Yeah, anyone out there too, man. If you're into that kind of stuff and you like records and books and all that, go check it out. It's great. Cadabra Records.
Now, does he put like a Boston hardcore spin on the artwork? Maybe like, one of the ancient ones is wearing like a straight edge hat or something like that?
No. You should check out his work, man. You can check him out on Instagram. He's got an Instagram, and it's it's all of his work, and it's like he has a style too, which is awesome. It's not just pure illustration. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. It's always good to see someone from, our little world there go on and do something cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
right.
Anything else, or you want to get into the menu?
Let me look at my notes here. Dashcam, Last of Us. No, I think that covers it.
Let's see. Dashcam, Annie Hardy.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's start a GoFundMe to make Dashcam too.
Yeah. Annie, if you're ever out in Jersey, we'll get a slice. You know what I'm
saying? Or if you find yourself in Austin, barbecue on me. Right on, man.
All right, man. So the menu. That's that actually like figured pretty highly on a lot of people's 2022 lists. You
A
know what I mean?
lot of people,
Yeah.
even non-horror fans, a lot of talk about this movie.
Yeah. It's 106 minutes long. It was released on September 10th, 2022, I guess in the festival run. And then in the US, November 2022. Directed by Mark Mylod, who did a lot of like UK TV. He did Succession and Shameless in the US. I believe they were both Netflix or cable TV type
HBO.
stuff. HBO, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Pretty banging cast, I think.
Mm.
If you think about it,
Oh,
we have the return of Ralph Fiennes. I haven't seen him in anything for a long time.
yeah, been a while for me too.
Yeah, as Chef Slowick. Anya Taylor Joy, who's like kind of like up and coming right now. We see her around a lot. Plays Margot.
Yes.
Margot, who is actually in truth Erin.
Yep.
Nicholas Hoult as Tyler, her douchebag boyfriend.
Accurate description.
Yeah. Hong Chow as the chef's right hand person, as Elsa. And the great John Leguizamo as the movie star.
Mm.
And
Glad
you know,
you mentioned the
there's some,
great John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
I like him a lot.
Me too, man. I think I love seeing him in movies, and he's one of those like kind of like workman like actors. Like he's in a lot of stuff, man, and not all of the films are great, but I always enjoy watching him act.
Oh, totally. And he brings a lot to this role. Of all the diners, I think he has, outside of our main character, he has the most. He is the best part, I think, or he brought the most to it.
Yeah, and I just like him because he's like from a certain era. He's like a New York guy. I feel like he and I are probably close to the same age, maybe, and like I think in the '90s and '80s, like I don't know, I was like people that were around during that period of time, and I associate them with certain things that went on during the '90s. And Leguizamo is like one of those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was in. I mean, he was great in Carlito's Way too.
Oh yeah, totally. Benny Bronco from
Yeah.
the Bronx.
Yeah. Well, my champagne's not good enough for you. Yeah, he's fantastic. Also, just a quick note about the cast. Nicholas Hoult, almost Batman.
That would have been a huge mistake, I think.
You think so?
Yeah. What
Yeah,
else has he been in,
interesting,
man? I hated him in this, so maybe that's coloring my opinion about him. I don't know.
I think you're supposed to hate him.
Right.
He was in the newer X-Men movies. I think he was Cyclops,
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
and he's on some show I don't want. I believe he's British.
Probably everyone's British these days because there's like
Um,
British and Australian actors are always playing like these kind of like tough guy like action roles in the States, you know?
That's true, actually. I never really thought about that. Yeah, well, it came down to him and Robert Pattinson for Batman. I believe those were like the top two choices. And watching this, I was kind of curious of what he would bring to Batman. I think ultimately they made the right. I mean, Robert Pattinson is a gift from God. He's incredible.
I had
What
no
could it
idea
be?
that Pattinson was British. I think I mentioned that before. It was funny though, right?
Yeah, has he ever played a British guy? I'm trying to think.
Well, there was that movie, Good Time, where
Oh,
he plays
so
this
good.
dude from Queens,
Yeah.
and I kind of thought Pattinson might have been like some like tri-state area guy, to be honest. Like Brooklyn guy or Jersey or something like that.
He just nails it so well, and it's very easy to go over the top with accents, as you've seen in any movie about Boston. There's always one actor just really just going hard on that accent.
Yeah.
But everything he does, he feels authentic. and he nails it.
All right, so what are we going to say about the menu? Okay, the setting is that Ralph Fiennes' character, the chef, he's like this top of the food chain, a bit world weary, I might add, chef who has this island, and there's a very, very exclusive clientele, and it's a fully immersive experience where you take a boat to the island. You know, it probably the price tag on this thing is way beyond, our means to attend something like this.
Yeah, I think they mentioned it's over $1,000 a plate. I'm not sure. I should have written that down.
Oh, that's it.
But yeah, I could. Yeah, you know what? Because I think I remember thinking like that's all things considered. It's really not that expensive. I mean, it's too rich for my blood, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would. Well, actually, it's interesting that we bring that up because that is important to the plot, really. Okay.
yeah.
So there's an assemblage of archetypical douchebags that show up for this thing. We got Tyler, which is like the greatest name for a guy like this.
I wrote that down. I wrote the same thing down.
So he's like one of these guys. Like I would call him like the ultimate fanboy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like he's knows everything about the chef. He probably has never even boiled an egg in his life, but he knows all about the the alchemy of cooking. You know what I mean? Like he has all this gear in his kitchen that, the special, fucking mechanism that they use to make all this stuff. But he's probably never, he even admitted that not knowing how to use a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Mike, I feel like you and I know a lot of people close to this guy.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like people who are huge music fans, they own all this vintage gear and they have no fucking idea how to play.
Yep. I was going to bring that up, actually.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah, guys who are into vintage gear, right? And in my experience, like vintage gear is like shit that doesn't work half of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, some of that stuff's cool to have for sure, man. But if you're just like a collector, it's kind of like jerking off, really. It's not like it's self-satisfying, I guess, in a way. But there's no real point to it unless you know how to use all this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found Tyler not like relatable, but the most believable character. Like is like someone who really exists and is this obnoxious. I think everyone else is a little bit caricature-y, but this is like right on the nose.
I'm gonna not name somebody, but this person, and I'm not gonna use any names because I don't want to offend anyone because some other people listening might know him. That we spent a lot of time together, the three of us, back in when ISIS was around, and
the band
kind of fits. The band ISIS, 100% fits the bill on in both counts, the food stuff and the gear stuff.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Okay, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Okay. So that's I definitely follow you on relating to Tyler, not personally as being like that, but knowing someone exactly like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an exclusive thing. They're on an island, and this is some of the most interesting scenes in the movie. Is the beginning where they're on an island, they're taking you around, and I got like a serious folk horror vibe from the first few minutes of this when on the island. They take them to the smokehouse where they keep they smoke the meats, and it kind of reminded me of the the sacrifice tent in Midsummer.
Yeah, I can see that. I that's I got to be honest with you. I kind of thought it was going a little bit in that direction too. That there was some sort of arcane energy on the island that might be connecting into some ancient, aura or whatever that is driving this plot forward. But that kind of is not really where this goes, though. You know.
No, and I mean, maybe that's why I was initially very disappointed with it because I thought that's where it was going to go. You see, like everyone, the chef, all his employee, they all live on the island. You see, like where the sous chefs and everyone sleeps. It's sort of this cult-like bunker.
Yeah.
And you got Chef who has his own quarter. You see, like there's this symbol on the door to his quarters, and it gave me like the Wicker Man vibes actually, where you have like Lord Summer Isle who's holed up in his own little area away from everyone else in this cult.
I really had no interest in seeing this movie last year because I just I saw the trailer and it didn't interest me, so I didn't read up about what this was. But then when I started watching it, I was like, oh man, maybe this is like some cult where they're ultimately sacrificing to some god or whatever, and that was kind of like the feeling I got as well, for sure.
Yeah, and much like I don't really like to watch a lot of trailers. I don't, because I feel they give way too much away. I did see the trailer for this, but it doesn't really tip its hat in where it's going to go. So, I saw the culty island type stuff. I was like, oh, I hope this is what it is because I love shit like that. And I also was like, oh God, a horror movie about food's got to be about cannibalism. I'm sure that's going to play into it. There's a moment where, the maitre d' is talking about the meat smoking process, and if you eat it a few days later, it could kill you. I was like, oh, that's somehow going to play into the plot of this, but really doesn't.
No, not at all. Which was kind of a bummer, I thought. But so Tyler's date. All right, what he had someone else on the guest list with him, and I guess they broke up or whatever, and so Margot, Anya Taylor Joy, is not the person whose name is on the list. And what I gleaned from this is that she was actually like a high-end prostitute that he hired to attend this thing with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what she is. And, side note, it's interesting. In a movie like this was made 20, 30 years ago, a prostitute would be right in there with the other guests as far as someone who's undesirable. And it's interesting now, like the sex worker is the hero. Well, not hero of the movie, but you know what I mean. The one you're the every person, the one you're supposed to identify with. And it's interesting. I like that the movie doesn't pass any sort of judgment on what she does.
Yeah, that's a very
other characters.
Oh yeah. Oh well, yeah. It's a very modern take. You know what I mean on that, which I thought was cool.
Sure.
Because then when you got a group of like complete douchey bro, like financial guys that show up, that immediately you want to destroy them. You know what I mean? Like you just have like you want to like follow these guys in a back alley and like cut them up with a hatchet or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Again, they're a little caricature-y, but it hits the right note for sure.
Yeah. And then we have the press, the pretentious food press couple. I mean, they're not a couple, but they attend together. They're colleagues, right?
Yeah, he's like her editor, lackey, something like, he agrees with every word that comes out of her mouth. He's just a sniveling piece of shit.
Yeah. And then John Leguizamo's character, the movie star, attends with another. I'm assuming she was an actress as well, but maybe not. That hadn't reached the heights career-wise that he did. But you also get the feeling that Leguizamo's character is on the descent of his career. Like he had like a couple of hits. Now he's kind of like on the Michael Madsen path. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, like just taking parts for money. Kind of like lost his love for the craft. He enjoys being noticed. And you see at the beginning, he's like, chef's a close personal friend of mine, which, isn't true. Another thing, Mike, you and I can relate to is how many guys like that do you know?
Oh, dude, I can't even count people I know that are like, yeah, I'm real tight. We're real tight. Meanwhile the guy he doesn't even know the person at all.
Yeah, exactly. And again, a lesser actor in this role might not have worked as well, but John Leguizamo is fantastic. And interestingly enough, I read he based his character on Steven Seagal.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because apparently, by all accounts, Steven Seagal is a huge piece of shit.
Damn. Sensei
Yeah.
Seagal. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get Seagal vibes from it, but I just thought that was really interesting. And in that world, like people don't really talk shit about each other, like people in our line
Yeah.
of arts do. Like it's perfectly fine, just slam someone. But actors don't usually go that route. They take the high road. But John Leguizamo even said he's like the fucking Steven Seagal's biggest piece of shit I ever met.
That makes me like him even more. Actually, out of
totally.
out of all the people that talk the most shit within the music world are producers and engineers. You ever notice that?
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
They're even worse
makes me
than
wonder.
they're even worse than people in bands. Actually, the guys who record music.
Oh, totally. They'll be telling you this guy can't play. This fucking blah blah blah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Not to say I've had any bad relationships with anyone I've worked with, but I have talked to a lot of people, producers and things like that, and I think you're totally right there.
Yeah, definitely. It's mostly people that I haven't worked with that are telling me about their studio that talk the most shit. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, ISIS wouldn't have made 4 records with Matt Bayless if they thought he was a shithead. But yeah. So it's mostly people I haven't worked with.
Yeah, but they're telling you about how sick their board is, or they have a specially designed fucking drum room, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Again, they're all Tylers. They have all this amazing gear, this best room, and then you hear what they do, and it's just fucking garbage. We know someone like that for sure.
Yeah.
Who thinks of himself as some uber producer who can't record a fucking album to save his life.
Yep. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the setting of this thing, and so they're assembled at these tables, and Ralph Fiennes. Now, Ralph Fiennes' character, like I said, he's a bit world weary. He's a guy who's been around forever and has risen to these heights in his career, yet is disillusioned with maybe the pretense surrounding the food world, and probably has, it comes out as like not in love with the art so much, and has disdain for the press, people who write about food, who potentially can ruin people's careers, and that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. I read it that this guy is sort of hates what being a chef has become. He hates that he played a big part in this food as like content, as just this exclusive pretentious experience. He really seems to have lost his way and is just completely miserable in his own in his art and his craft that he's worked his whole life for, and now he hates it. And I gotta say, man, Ralph Fiennes really sells this this guy. He's so believable as this this chef. One thing I wrote down is kind of interesting: no tattoos on Chef Slowick.
Yeah, that's like a big thing with people in the food industry, is have like neck and hand tattoos and being all inked up and everything.
Yeah, which initially I thought, I was like, oh, I think that was intentional, because this movie has a very close attention to detail when it comes to the world of that sort of world. Like the food looks like something you would see in a place like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know anything about that kind of food really myself. Like I don't pretend to be like a foodie in that way. But yeah, from what I've never experienced a meal like that before where you get like this fucking, thimble sized serving of like, fucking quail eggs or whatever the hell they're eating.
Yeah, and, I haven't either. I've done, some like, fine dining that pretends it's not pretentious, but it is, for sure. But they got those details right. And I think that it was right that someone, Ray Fiennes' age maybe comes from a different era of culinary arts, the guys who were like probably in their 50s, they're not covered head to toe in like hatchet tattoos or knife tattoos or whatever. Yeah, I just thought that was a nice touch.
What are your feelings on that? Because like I know, I don't know, maybe 20, 15, maybe 15 years ago, I felt like I'm thinking of a very specific place in Brooklyn where suddenly it was like this really hip thing to be like a butcher. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
Yeah.
meanwhile, there've been like these old Italian dudes have been cutting up cows in that same area for like the last 100 years, and then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, man, like I got this like farm whatever farm direct operation over here, and everyone's got like neck tattoos and like like these beards and stuff like that, and like you said, like hatchets and knives tattooed, things like that. What do you think of
Yeah.
that vibe? What's your opinion on
It's
that?
strange. It's strange to me that just became like the hip, cool thing, and like this sort of rock star look started more like they started adapting that sort of thing, like the heavily tattooed thing, and I'm a rebel, I'm an artist. Hey, I mean, teach their own, but I just always found it a little odd. I don't know.
It feeds into my thought about how people ruin things. You know what I mean? Like I do believe, like I'm a dilettante when it comes to like being a foodie. Like I don't consider myself like a foodie. I like food. I like eating healthy. Maybe that's what I put over the actual art of food. I always gravitate towards like certain types of things to eat that supplement my lifestyle. You know what I mean? But I think that, yeah, food is art, but similar to music and everything else in film, you don't have to be like a cunt about it. You know what I'm trying to say? Which is like how I feel like a lot, having lived in the, Greenpoint, Williamsburg area in Brooklyn for, decades, and seeing how things slowly changed over the years. That was like, I'm like, oh, one of these guys. Like, oh yeah, I'm a fucking chef. Like, we party like really hard. We stay up all night, and then we cut meat. I don't know. It's just fucking annoying, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get you there, and I like how like Tyler is like the embodiment of the criticisms of that world,
Yeah.
of that like mindset.
Yeah, because he's like enamored with the whole thing. Yet I found him fascinating because it's like he's enamored with everything, all the trappings of it, but he's not engaged in the activity at all, And
Yeah.
I just find that fascinating with people and the type of person who does that. I mean, you and I, we play music, but we were fans, and we still are. We still listen to music a lot. I mean, as a kid, when I listened to bands play, I'm like, oh, I want to learn how to play guitar. It's like I feel compelled to try my hand at it. And Tyler just is like comfortable just being a spectator and having, because he has means, a way of surrounding himself with these trappings. You know what I mean?
Sure. I think he is by far and away the most interesting character in this movie, and easily the most despicable and unlikable.
Yeah. Yeah, because like,
Um,
and that gets exposed too, later on.
oh yeah, I mean, entitlement is a big theme of this movie, and Tyler is walking entitlement. He thinks because I'm in the know, I know what's up. I have one of these fucking stupid machines that makes snow food, whatever. He explicitly says no photos, and he's just snapping away. Yeah, yeah, he's just like an entitled piece of shit.
And he was like really, really tickled by the fact that the chef called him by his name.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
sous chef. Yeah,
yeah,
and they make it a point to mention he did not ask what the sous chef's name was.
right, exactly.
Again, something you and I can relate to. You know, these guys, you know, they'll be hanging out, and you know, if you're not, you know, the fucking singer or like the front man of a band, or you're not like a cool guy in the band, like say he's talking to like the tech or something like that, you know, he's not as interested. You don't matter to him.
Yeah, actually, really funny when we did a bunch of tour dates with the Creator, like along the southwest a few years ago, and their merch lady thought I worked at the venue. So that takes that vibe to an extreme, man. And it was like the third or fourth day into this run that we were doing with them. And, ultimately, I mean, it was like a short, like maybe like a week, because I got all the bands on that little leg. We're all playing at Ozfest. And it was like, so it was like 3 or 4 days into this thing. And she's like, hey, can you get me a case of waters? And I was just like, what? Ask the fucking guy who works here, lady. You know, and I was like,
dude, wasn't that one of our running jokes on the ISIS Tombs tour? Like we didn't know who you were. Like we thought you were part of the crew.
Yeah. Well, that was also based in fact, because this, I think, probably the tour right before that when we had that running joke, we were out with Wolves in the Throne Room in Pelican. And there was this band Dredge that was on one of those, like 3 or 4 of those shows.
Yeah, I remember them.
I never heard of them until that day that we played with them, right? And they were definitely not the kind of band I like. I thought, like, it was, they misspelled it, I think, on the itinerary, so it was DREDG, not with an E. So I was like, oh, maybe this is like some like Eastern European like black metal like kind of bands, you know what I mean?
Right.
But they're just like basically a Deftones like ripoff, right? Would you say that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of. You know. So.
Sure. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Hard to recall, but I'll take your word for it.
So I remember like I'm trying to be a friendly guy. You know, I try to get along with everyone, and I just was like a couple days into that run, I see the drummer. Like later on, like I think, back in the green room, and he was a really good drummer, by the way. And I was like, oh, hey, thanks. I didn't say thanks. I was like, good set, man. Kind of half bullshitting because I thought they sucked musically, but
yeah,
he was like, oh yeah, thanks for coming out, man. Now keep in mind, they were going on before us too.
Oh my god,
yeah,
that's fucking amazing, dude. Yeah, shit like that happens all. Someone thought I was Mike Patton's bodyguard once. I think
bodyguard. Wow.
Yeah, because I was standing next to him, and the guy asked me, he's like, "Do you think I could talk to Mr. Patton?" I said, "Yeah, I don't care. Go ahead." I just played, asshole.
Yeah. So that's the kind of vibe we got in this thing where this guy Tyler doesn't care about anybody but himself. It's all supporting his ego. Oh, the sous chef, like he knows my name. But it's like, yeah, he's just a punk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I love, like, it's sort of a slow turn of the screw, how the events unfold. Like you have Ralph Fiennes' chef introducing every course, and I found this stuff, like it's very authentic. Like this seems believable. Like the breadless bread plate.
Yeah.
That sounds like just some pretentious fuckery that I'm sure existed. I'm sure the writers probably took a lot of this from reality.
And it was like this kind of like political statement too, in a lot of ways, because it was like, everyone here has the means to be here, and bread has typically been this kind of like peasant food. So you shall have no bread with this meal, And I was like, oh, if I'm going to pay like a couple of G's to sit down and eat this stuff, I want some bread. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the tech guys again, entitlement. Like we're investors, we basically own this place, so can we get some fucking bread?
Yeah.
Whereas Tyler's just eating it up. He loves the fact that I mean, Tyler is sort of like the joke is on him, but he doesn't get that. He's just eating up this like I know little dollops of olive oil and saying, "Oh, I want to be embalmed in this. This is so beautiful." He doesn't seem to get that chef is making fun of him.
Yeah, and that's essentially what it is. It's like we learn a little bit about everyone that's there. Okay. And
Yeah.
and there is a climax to this film where everyone kind of gets their just desserts. You know,
Mm.
one of the things that steps it up though, this is where you realize that what this isn't fun and games is the segment with the sous chef.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, his sort of introductions to the dishes get a little bit more outlandish as they go along. I love he tells that Taco Tuesday story, and people were like, "What the fuck was that?" And to top that, yeah, he brings out the sous chef and basically like he doesn't quite belittle. I'm not sure how I put it. Like you're good, but you'll never be great.
dude,
And
it was fucking heavy. I thought because he takes like this guy who obviously aspires to be this top of the line chef. Like he wants to be the man. Like he is dedicated himself to his craft, and he's working underneath chef and giving everything. He made sacrifices. Probably is no relationship. He lives in this fucking island in a bungalow with all these motherfuckers out there, and it's like, he's he's like giving up his entire life. And Rafe finds his character is like, yes, you have given everything, but you will never be good enough. You will never be me, even though you've been trying to be me.
right.
And the guy fucking shoots himself in the head. He just ends it. He's like, what's the point, of going on if like I can never reach what I've decided was my the objective of my whole life.
Yeah, and it's you said a very heavy scene, and I love the reactions to this from the other diners. Some people think it's theater, some people are horrified. You know, Tyler just keeps eating like nothing's happening.
Yeah.
Sees drunk like Chef Slovik's drunk or Slovik's drunk mom, sort of indifferent.
Oh, that's right. I forgot
Um,
about the mother. Yeah. She's also
yeah,
attending this soiree.
it's easy to forget because she's just sort of in the corner, hammered the whole movie, and like I found that to be like a real funny touch. But
Yeah.
so yeah, this is where like things really ramp up, sort of a little bit of a slow burn, and then things sort of go to 10. Really, after that build up, they just really scene after scene is just ramps it up. Um,
Yeah,
it's
this is when
I
everyone
can't.
starts to realize that they're basically trapped on this island in this room, and they're past the point of no return.
Yeah, and this is kind of the beginnings of some of my problems with the movie. Um, tonally, like like this movie never goes full dark, full. You know what I mean? Like it's a horror movie. It's a horror black comedy, but it never goes quite as dark as I was hoping it would go. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I actually read this as a comedy more than a horror film, honestly, too. You know what I mean? And because it
oh,
doesn't
for
really
sure.
work as a horror movie, but it definitely works as a comedy. You know?
Yeah, very dark one, but yeah. So what happened? Like you have the old guy who, well, for like he serves a dish with tortillas, and on the tortillas, like their sort of sins are printed on the tortillas. You get like that's your first explanation of why Chef wants these people here. Um, you see, because on the tortilla that Tyler gets, it's him taking photos of the food that he was told not to take photos of. On the Tech Bros tortillas, it's all these, numbers and figures and wire transfers and things like that. Um, and the most like the actor, it's like the title of a movie he is in, which kind of ends up being funny. Like
Yeah.
Chef is slighted that he was in a movie he didn't like.
That I was like, I laughed during that part. I was like, man, I get it though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the old guy is having an affair, and
With Margot.
and with yes, well,
Well, it's
he
not really an
hired
affair. It's like he hired her for some escort service. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah, so you start to learn. There's almost like a. Did you pick up like maybe like a Deadly Sins sort of vibe to this at all? Like,
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it wasn't explicitly, deadly sins, but yeah, there was adultery. No one murdered anyone. There wasn't any kind of like murder. There was, you know, no coveting of thy neighbor's wife or anything like that. But greed.
right, but yeah, greed with the tech guys. I noticed, obviously, Tyler envies the chef, and you have like the lazy, sort of doesn't care anymore actor, which I guess could kind of be sloth, um, lust with the old man. I don't know. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
reading
no,
into it too much,
yeah,
but
you're onto something for sure, man. The funny thing about the actor though is Chef talks about how on it was like one of his few days off, and he wanted to see this film, and it was like awful, and he holds him responsible for it.
yeah,
I just wanted
yeah,
to
just
expand
showing
on that a little bit because I felt the same way about movies too sometimes, where it's like, all right, I'm setting aside this time to watch this thing, and it turns up being completely disappointing.
Oh, totally, totally. Yeah, I can relate. I'm not sure I'd want him dead for that,
No,
but
no, no.
um, but yeah, the screws are off at this point. The maitre d' cuts off the old man's finger because he threatens to call someone to get them out of here. Um, he gives this big speech about the investor and then drowns him.
Yeah.
Kind of dark.
Well,
And here, yeah, go ahead.
the Tyler scene is like really fucking heavy too, man. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's the funniest part of the movie by far, too.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, Tyler, who is this bystander in the world of cooking, he tells him to, all right, cook, make something. And it's like this complete horrible, disgusting thing, and he basically humiliates him in front of everybody.
And it is such a funny scene, and the chef is just very like be like, ooh, a new dicing technique that we weren't aware of.
Yeah,
Or
it's
like,
very
oh,
condescending.
shallots. Yeah, exactly. And just watching him throw all this stuff together haphazardly, like the butter spinning around in the pan, and it's really funny. I think it's by far the best scene in the movie.
Yeah, it speaks to like just his overall lack of being humble and entitlement, and just this ego like that this guy has.
Yeah, and in the scene before that, it's also telling, all right, like the gloves are off, they know they're fucked. This scene, there's a scene in particular that really bothered me. Chef brings everyone outside. They do, he brings up one of his chefs, and he's like, oh, I basically, sexually harassed her, and she gets to stab him, and which seems, I mean, sexual harassment in the restaurant industry is definitely worth addressing, but it seemed a little out of character, like they're in this like cult-like environment that.
I agree.
um
I totally agree with that because Chef's character, the whole thing that he has is discipline and this kind of denial of his life, denial of the certain needs that he might have had. So it was very much out of character that he would have sexually harassed that lady.
well, but even like, I think the devotion like that they all have to him is like, even if she didn't want to sleep with him, maybe like she probably would have, because he is very much the cult leader.
That's a good point.
um
Okay, I see what you're saying now. Yeah. I got you.
It seemed, I mean, it didn't bother me. I wasn't like, oh, bullshit. But that just seems how like that would have gone. But my bigger complaint is the scene right after that. You know, the course is called Men's Folly, and there's this constant like talk about like this evening has been painstakingly planned. Everything is, has to go a certain way for this menu to make sense. And then he offers an opportunity for the men to escape. Why? I
Yeah.
did not, for the life of me, understand the point of that scene at all. It doesn't push the narrative forward. It doesn't make sense in his overall plan because, one of the guys could have escaped. And then his big evening, his masterpiece, is ruined.
I agree.
So,
I thought that was a set piece that they added to put in the trailer. You know what I mean? Like this is those two things that we're talking about right now. I feel like this movie, maybe the script was kind of put together, and someone had like, okay, we have to add these scenes. We have to add the sexual harassment scene because that's what people talk about nowadays. You know what I mean? So that was added. Not to diminish the the weight of sexual harassment, but we have to put this in here because this is what movies are about these days. And then the Men's Folly stuff was like pointless, really. It's like, it's almost like maybe that was someone had an idea of what this film should have in it, and they just added that because let's put a scene where the sous chefs hunt down the men. And I'm like, wow, it doesn't really narratively make any sense, like you were saying.
No, it made zero sense. And it really bothered me. I thought, okay, where is this going? Are they being hunted now, and they're going to be part of the next course, and ultimately, it just really didn't go anywhere. And it kind of like it just spits in the face of Chef's plan. And then towards the end, he's like, all of you, why didn't you ask yourselves why you didn't try harder to escape? But they did.
Sure.
So that really baffled me and still does. I thought maybe with a second viewing, I was like, I must have missed something.
I mean, the reality of it is like, I mean, why didn't somebody just walk up to him and punch him in the face and be like, let me out of here? You know what I mean? It's like, picked up like a fucking knife or something and put it to his neck and be like, I'm leaving. Let me out of this fucking place. You know what I'm trying to say? I don't know.
No,
everyone's
totally.
playing by the rules,
And it's not the only scene like that where it doesn't narratively make sense. So you get that, nothing comes of it. All the guys come back. John Leguizamo has a very funny line, or she's like, "What happened?" He's like, "Where's the assistant?" He goes, "What happened?" He goes, "What do you think? I escaped." And then there's like a little action, like a fight scene, which feels really out of place in this movie between. I guess we should mention Chef sees through Margot's ruse right away. He's like, "You're not one of them. You're one of us."
Well, I thought that was a very important part of the whole narrative, and that I thought was really interesting because Margot was hired to be there, so she's in Chef's mind, since he seems to be omniscient and know everything about everybody. He's like, you're a service provider like us. We're just the help. We're just here to serve people, and so are you. So it's like, you have to make a decision if you want to be back here with us or, out there with them. However, that doesn't mean that she would have survived had she made that decision to be with them, because, everyone kind of ended up the same in this movie.
Well, yes, that is his masterpiece. Everyone dies. That's his plan.
Yeah.
And he's like, you can either die with them or you can die with us. So he gives her like a task that the maitre d' gets sort of jealous of. And again, this scene kind of like just really took me out of the movie, where it's like she, is jealous that he asked Margot to go and do this. Wants to get a powder keg. And they have like this like choreographed like fight scene that just feels completely out of place.
Yeah, yeah, it was like some action that they wanted to add. So I guess like yeah, that's also my criticism of this movie is there's obviously set pieces that were inserted into this film just so we can have some action or but I would have
Yeah.
rather that they stayed in the kind of conceptual realm of this film and expanded more on those themes, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know they need an excuse for Margot to go into the chef's quarters, so to find out like some of his past, like she finds out that he was like a line cook at like a fast food burger type joint. And we need that tidbit of information later on. Also, she finds a radio, and this is another scene that drove me crazy. She radios the Coast Guard, and that is a big nothing of a scene because the Coast Guard isn't the Coast Guard. He's one of the chefs, one of the sous chefs or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, what was the point of that scene?
Yeah, it
Like
kind of falls
it was
apart
just theater.
towards the end, for sure.
Yeah, and yeah, it's such a frustrating movie because the elements for greatness are there. It's all right there, but they take some very strange detours and ultimately for nothing. Okay, like the men escaping attempt scene adds nothing to the movie. Narratively, it's not really a particularly tense or anything. You really know how it's going to play out. The whole scene with the fake Coast Guard, maybe he's going to help them, maybe he's going to save them, but he ends up just being, he works for chef. So, okay, how did they plan that? Like this guy was in the kitchen, and then he just takes a boat and
Yeah,
circles back around and pretends that he's a coast. Like it was just utterly bizarre. It did not make sense to me at all.
I agree. So
And
at the end, oh, I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
no, no, no. I was just gonna. You want to talk about the end because I had problems with that
Yeah,
too.
I just I would rather not talk about the ending since this is a relatively new film. Just kind of you know people. I don't want to give out the entire film really.
Sure. Uh, I had
Even,
problems
yeah,
with the end.
even though you can see the end coming a mile away too.
Yeah. Um, yeah. It's such an interesting build and such a subject worthy of this sort of satire. It just, in the end, ultimately, it didn't 100% come through. Uh, to me, it didn't quite connect all the dots. It wasn't completely fully realized. But I'll say this: when I first saw it, I remember texting you. I was like, I just watched the menu. I didn't like it at all. But I did find myself over the week turning it over in my head and thinking about different aspects. And then watching it a second time, I definitely liked it more, but I still found a lot of it frustrating.
I I was kind of mildly entertained by it. Uh, it doesn't really rate that high for me, and yeah, I thought there were some interesting things in the film. I thought the acting was great. I
Mm,
was really
yeah,
excited about Ralph Fiennes showing up again. Well, like I said earlier, John Leguizamo is another actor that I like. I think everything was really well done, but similar to you in the beginning, I thought it was going to go in a completely different direction, and it went into a direction that I thought was kind of like, all right, yeah, okay, entitlement, yes, I know all this stuff. These archetypical characters, uh, stereotypes, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool, I get it. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was just to me, it was like the emperor's new clothes, man. It was just nothing new to me, and it wasn't particularly good as a horror film, and it was a decent satirical comedy, but it's not something I would revisit, ever again, really, you know.
right. Yeah, like I kind of like yeah, like you. Like I expected one thing, didn't get it, which is fine. But it just didn't hold a lot of weight with me in the end. It was a case of what could have been. Because I feel like, again, it could have been great, but ultimately, all right, so we got to give it a grade. What would you give it?
I give it a solid 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm somewhere between a 3 and a 3.5. First time I saw it, I was like 2 at best. But I liked it. Like I said, it stayed with me in parts, but like it stayed with me in a way like, God, like this could have been perfect. This could have been one of the best movies of the year, but it just misses the mark, and that's a little, and it just, I was kind of let down,
I actually had the opposite with you. When I finished it, I kind of liked it, and as the days went by, I liked it less. You know what I mean? And maybe it was because of the fact that I love hamburgers, and I'll just leave it at that.
That's a good point. Yeah, and also like it's kind of funny, like maybe the character of Tyler is some sort of comment of, you can look at us. I mean, we're guys talking about movies and what we like and don't like about it. But you and I could never well, maybe not never, but yeah, we couldn't make a movie.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, I agree. Sure. We're full of shit. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always stress that, like, hey, man, I'm just a guy talking to my friend. I'm in no way of a professional critic or anything.
That's like what I think the difference is that we don't we're just like bullshitting around, and like we're not trying to, we're not ruining people's lives by talking about these movies. If I was like an actual critic whose opinion mattered to someone, I'd probably take things a little bit differently,
Yeah, absolutely. But ultimately, interesting movie. Yeah, so I'll go with 3. That will be my final grade.
That's the official
Worth
grade.
Seeing.
Okay.
Yes, official.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be on the cover of the Blu-ray. 3 stars. Necromaniacs.
Imagine that, Jeff Kashid, Necromaniacs, 3 stars. I was disappointed.
Oh man! Someone make that happen, please. All right. So I think we got that down.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And definitely check it out. But these are just our thoughts on this film.
Absolutely, not bad, but disappointing.
Yeah. Talk to you guys next week. Take care.
Take care, guys.